Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today it's about timeshares and how I got rid of, and you can too, 25 different timeshares. Now, this is not like one at a time. Like at one point, I had 25 timeshares and I had to get rid of them. And I did. And I'm going to go through 10 things. It just happened to be 10. It could have been 8 or 9, but it turned out to be 10, which is nice for a video, I guess. These are the top 10 things that I did to get rid of 25 timeshares. And one of these, you're going to be surprised because it sort of came up by accident and it's something that no one talks about. And it turned out for me to actually work the best. It made it easy for me to get rid of a ton of timeshares. And I actually ultimately made money out of it, which was a shock. So I'm going to go through that. So I would hang on for this video because you're going to be like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Now, first off, you have to understand going into this a couple things, okay? One is you have to just kind of come to grips with your timeshare isn't worth anything and no one wants it, okay? That's just a big one. I don't care if you pay 25 grand for it or 40 or whatever, and and you want to get like, at least half of what you paid. It's just not going to happen. So if you're hanging on for that, it's not going to happen and you're never going to get out of it. If you come to grips with it's not worth anything, then all of a sudden it becomes easy, okay? Well, relatively easy, easier, maybe that's a better way to put it. They're never easy to get rid of, but you can do it, and you can do it reasonably quickly, okay? The other thing that I want you to understand out of this is all of the timeshares that I had, none of them were junk. They were all in amazing locations. So people wanted them. They weren't like, in Iowa or in the Poconos or something like that. The ones I had were in Vegas. They were in San Antonio right on Riverwalk. Have you ever been to San Antonio? Riverwalk is amazing. They were in Paris. They were in the Costa del Sol. They were in the Escondido, outside of San Diego in a golf resort. They were in Florida, in Orlando. So I had great resorts, okay? And that helps too. If you have a lousy resort, ultimately, I don't know if any of these things are going to work for you. So let's start out. Number 10, you can give it to a resale agent to sell for you. That's somebody where you hand it over to them. It's like a real estate broker, and they try to sell it. Now, they're going to ask for a fee up front. And it's been my experience, because I started out doing this way in the beginning, they wanted their fee and I did one of them and nothing ever got sold, ever. And yet the person kept their fee. So it's like, okay, scratch that. I'm not doing that anymore because that was just a pure ripoff. Number 9, you see this on TV a lot. You hear it on the radio. You can pay a law firm, a lawyer, to get you out of the contract. They will break the contract. Again, they're going to ask for a fee up front, and it's usually not small, it can be quite hefty. And the other, I've never used this, but the other disconcerting thing about this whole process is that there's a lot of these law firms that are under investigation in a whole bunch of states for illegal practices, and basically they're scams. Okay, so I don't know if you want to be doing that. Number 8, you can donate them to specific charities. They're national charities that will take timeshares and then presumably they sell them off. And it's a pretty good thing if you can get it done. What I found is that they're really picky on what they'll take. Like if you don't have a super high location and a super valuable one initially, it was one of those ones that sold for 40, 50 grand or something like that, they're not going to take it. You could have one in Grand Bend, Indiana, or somewhere in southern Illinois, or the Poconos, or other places, and they're not in middle of Tennessee. They're not going to want it. The only ones they take are the really ultra high demand ones, and even then, it's iffy. I never really could get a handle on what their criteria was, other than they would turn down so many things. They wanted one of my Marriotts. But I knew that Marriott would actually pay me for the resort to take it back, so I wasn't going to do that. So, if you can manage it, I guess they're cool because they do give you a tax receipt, which is handy. They might give you a tax receipt for $10,000 if you say the timeshare was worth $10,000, which is probably going to give you maybe $2,000 back on your tax return. But, again, hard to pull off. Number 7, now we're starting to get into the ones that are a little bit more realistic. You can try to sell it on a resale site like Tug, where you're selling to other owners and people who are interested in buying a timeshare, or redweek.com. That's pretty good too. And there's links to those 2 websites below. The good part about this is Tug or Redweek, they don't get any money. Where your money goes is to another owner if you're buying, and someone else, if you're selling, their money comes directly to you. There's nobody taking any fee out. Now, the tough part about these sites are it takes a long time to sell something. You can have something listed on there for a really long time, and it'll, you think, well, I'm never going to sell this, and all of a sudden somebody will pop up and be interested in your resort. Again, it has to be a really good resort with high demand, high traffic, great location, and you have to be offering it for not much money. You really don't want to be going over $2,000. You want to be $2,000 or less if you really, really want to get rid of your timeshare. Number 6, you can give your timeshare to a charity, but not like the last charity I was describing, or an organization as a prize. You know how a lot of charities or organizations will try to raise money. They do those silent auction things where there's a bunch of tables and there's paintings on them, or there's a trip to somewhere and there's just a bunch of different stuff, and people sign the sheet, put down some amount that they want to pay or whatever for it. They'll usually take your timeshare for a couple reasons, okay? And again, I got rid of 2 of them doing this. They'll take your timeshare because they never own it, so they have no risk. If no one wants that timeshare, they'll never sign the sheet, okay? But if someone wants it, they'll sign the sheet and they'll put up some low amount of money, which you don't care because all you want to do is get out of it. They could put up anything, $1 would be fine with you, because if they want it, you're out and they'll take it over for you. But it's surprising the actual amount of money sometimes someone will pay for it when it's a charity, particularly, again, if it's a really good one. Someone may look and go like, wow, I'd really like to have that timeshare, that 2-bedroom timeshare, in Miami or outside of Tampa or in Orlando. I can go south for the winter. And they'll buy it in that instant. Number 5, you can sell it back to your resort company. I did that with my Marriott one. I had a Marriott Royal Palms. It was in Orlando, right across basically I-4 from Disney World. It was a great resort, surrounded by beautiful golf course. And these units were stellar inside. They were gorgeous, and they still are. I paid $11,500 in 1981. They bought it back for me about 3 years ago, just before COVID started, so I guess 2018, 2019, they bought it back from me for $7,000. So for $4,000, I used that unit for almost coming up on 40 years. I mean, that was an incredible bargain. And they were a really great company. They were nice and gracious about buying it back. It was really no effort. And I'm sure there's other companies that do this. I know there are a few others. Not all, certainly. It should be all, but because mathematically, from a financial point of view, it's good for them to actually buy it back. They come out ahead, not you as an owner. But anyway, I mean, it's another option. Number 4, and this is pretty similar to the last one, you can offer it back to your timeshare company, to the overall entity that basically runs your timeshare. I had one in Costa del Sol, the southern part of Spain. I paid $800 for it. It was a great 2-bedroom unit. It was beautiful, really. It was owned by Crown Resorts, ultimately. Somebody else owned it when I bought it. Crown Resort took it over. They fixed it up tremendously. It was gorgeous. And then after they fixed it up, they started to raise the maintenance fees, understandably, really, because they had put so much money into the resort and made it really nice. But I didn't want to pay the extra fees because at the time, the fees when I had it, they were pretty low. And then they started to, we got to the point where, okay, you're on the edge of, I don't know if I want to pay this much as a maintenance fee. So I wrote them a letter and say, hey, I really kind of don't like this maintenance fee going up. Would you be open to taking it back? They wrote back and said, sure. Sent me a 1-page document, in the email, sign it, get it notarized, send it back to us, you're out. That was it. Crown Resorts just took it back from me. Boom, boom, done. Goodbye. So there's that. You can try that with your timeshare company. Number 3, and this is a complicated one, and you may or may not be able to pull it off, but sometimes resorts get in financial trouble. I owned one. It was in Brownsville, Texas, and you're thinking, Brownsville, what kind of location is that? Well, it's so far south, it's virtually equal to like Key West, Florida. It's one of the southernmost points of the United States, so it's hot there. It's a semi-tropical environment. It's warm there in the wintertime. Therefore, there was a high demand for it when you run out of all the other places and you want something warm. You can't go to the Caribbean, can't go to Florida. Where do you go? You go to Brownsville. It had an unbelievable trading power, really high. And because it was in Brownsville and the costs were low, the maintenance fee was like stupid low. It was crazy. It was something like $350. It was nothing. And the units were gorgeous. They were big 2-bedrooms. Anyway, they ran into financial trouble, and I got this note from them, and it said something along the lines of, hey, we need this extra maintenance fee because we're in financial trouble, and they wanted like an extra $1,000 or $1,200. And it was like, I'm not paying you that, because I had a whole bunch of timeshares there. I had put a bunch of them in a row for January and February, and I'll tell you about that in another video. The concept is pretty cool in that rather than buy basically, a condo or something like that for yourself somewhere in the south so that you can be a snowbird and go south for the winter, you can just buy a bunch of timeshares in one place and do that instead. It's way cheaper. Anyway, that was the concept. So I had a bunch of timeshares at this place, and they wanted this extra money. So I wrote them a note and I explained the finances of the situation that they were in, and basically said, why don't you do this, because I'm not paying you your $1,000. You're going to have to fight me for it. Why don't you do this? Just send a letter to all your owners and say, we're in financial trouble. We'll let everybody out of their contracts for nothing. Just, send the paperwork. And then they ended up getting everybody's timeshares, okay? And they keep the real estate, and then they could turn around and resell it and be financially solvent. You sell them and you make a fortune. Okay, that was basically it. And you know what? That's what they did. I got, letters came in the mail, sign off on these timeshares, and you're out. So that's another way to go. Number 2, you can give your timeshare away to friends or family. I know a lot of people would be reticent to do this, like, ooh, I don't know. And I'll tell you about why it's not a bad deal at all for your friends. It's actually really good, and I truly believe in this, because I believe that timeshares are not all bad, again, under the right circumstances. This is what I did. I put a Facebook post up and said, hey, we got a condo in Florida. I don't need these timeshares anymore. If anybody's interested, I'll just give them to you. They're 100% totally free. All you'd need to do is pay the fee to move the deed to you. That's it. You don't have to do it's free, okay? And then I listed where each of the ones were, Las Vegas and, Escondido, Florida, and San Antonio, and a whole bunch of other places. And I had a pretty fair amount of friends. If I recall, I think I got rid of 6 of them. And they took them over, and they were happy. And they were happy because they didn't have to pay anything. It was free to them. And again, if you get a timeshare for free and you think you can use it, and the maintenance fee is reasonably priced, not exorbitant and crazy high, they're really good deals. So that's why I didn't feel bad about giving it to anybody. And when I would explain and do the math of it, but sometimes you do have to explain to do the math. And the math is really, really simple. It's what I had in the other video. Let's just say San Antonio, and if you look at a hotel and you go, San Antonio 1 week, this week, what's a 2-bedroom cost in one of these hotels right on Riverwalk, which is right on the river, which is amazing. What do they cost? The price is going to come up something like $3,000. Wow, okay, now $3,000. But then you look, what's the maintenance fee here? $800. Done, sold. Anybody look at it that sees the math and goes, okay, is there a catch here? No, there's no catch. The only catch is for whoever bought it originally, the original timeshare, because they had to add another $25,000 or $30,000 that they had to pay in order to get that low fee compared to what it would rent for. They made up for that by paying, all that money up front. But when you give somebody a timeshare for nothing, they don't have to make that up. It's a win-win, 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 win. Nobody loses on that. It's really good. And finally, number one. This is the one that I came across by accident, and I was really sort of surprised how well that it worked and the ramifications of it. And you should be able to do it because one of these companies probably exists in your town, certainly if you're in the United States or Canada, but probably everywhere in the world. And what it is it's a trade bank or a barter company or a barter exchange. I moved 7 or 8 timeshares through this, and I'll explain how. And I actually received $35,000 in trade credits with this company on stuff that I didn't care about getting the credit at all. All I wanted was just to get out of the timeshares for nothing. But I actually made $35,000. Now, the downside for me was it's a business type trade bank, so there's a lot of things that I couldn't use what they have for, but they did have restaurants and other things. So I've got a whole bunch of, certificates for, eating, here's a $100 certificate, go to this restaurant, go to that restaurant, that type of stuff. So I probably maybe have used, $2,000 worth of their credit that they gave me of the original $35,000. But again, I didn't care if I got anything out of it, but I came out ahead on their credit. So it's a little complicated to a degree if you don't understand the concept, but let me explain it to you. Barter companies come with different names. There's the Barter Network, there's iTex Corporation, that's in the US and Canada. Barter Network, I believe, is only in Canada. But I'm sure there are barter and trade exchanges everywhere. You just have to find them. And what they do typically is it's all businesses. It's businesses with excess inventory or services that they want to get something else that they don't want to spend money on. It's very much like, if you own a timeshare now, it's very much like RCI or Interval. It's the same concept. It's a trade bank. You put a timeshare in, yours, your location, your unit, and you pull out a different timeshare somewhere else and a different unit. Same concept. The only difference is it's different things. It could be it could be legal fees, it could be bookkeeping, it could be welding. Somebody will weld stuff. It might be a roofer. They'll put a roof on your house, or they'll fix your plumbing or electrical. It runs the gamut of what they are. I had used them when I was working because I was managing a media division, and we used to barter advertising. We would give away advertising and in return get some other stuff. Usually we would get billboards, and we would put our radio stations advertising on billboards. They trade their billboards, and we give advertising time. And somebody like, again, like maybe an accounting firm might want to have, radio commercials on our radio station. So, it kind of goes around and works that way. So I called the guy and I go, hey, do you take timeshares? And he goes, yeah, sure, we do it all the time. It's like, really? Okay, well, how about these? So I put a bunch of timeshares up, and they all went. And I put some high rates on them because I didn't want to put $1 on. Matter of fact, the guy talked me out of it because, no, you don't want to put anything a low value. You want to put a decent value on it, something that looks realistic, because it becomes more attractive. So I remember in particular, I put one, the Paris unit that I had on, and I think I paid like $2,600 for the unit that I had in Paris. It was week 51, which occasionally, every once in a while, because of the way dates fall, it became Christmas week, okay? But still, it was week 51 most of the time, the week just before Christmas. I paid like $2,600, but I offered it for $15,000 in trade. And boom, it went just like that. I was like, wow. They sold for timeshare credits really easily and amazingly well. Now, why did that happen? Well, it's because you have to understand timeshares and you have to understand barter networks, because the crux of a timeshare and a barter network, how they coincide, is that usually on a barter network, somebody is giving away something that they don't value very much, okay? So if you're giving away bookkeeping, they're not really valuing their bookkeeping, because to them it's just time that they can just do it. They already know it. They're not spending any money. It doesn't cost them anything. It's just their time. If they're giving away rugs and putting them into the timeshare company, into the barter company, they're doing that because nobody wants to buy the rugs. It's usually inventory that they know no one wants and they can't get rid of it, and basically it's worthless. So the next best thing is to put it away into a barter company and be able to pull out something that is worth something. So ultimately, you got zero value going in the people's minds, and you got zero value coming out in the people's minds. Because even when somebody paid me $15,000 worth of credits for that amazing Paris timeshare, and it really was a good one, it's a great timeshare, Paris timeshare, incredibly rare. And as a matter of fact, I think he wanted to give it to his wife, as I recall, the person who took it on their anniversary or something like that, birthday, I think it was anniversary. So the person who did that, I mean, they were happy because they got a Paris timeshare and they gave away $15,000 of credit of something that they didn't want to begin with. Again, it keeps going back to, I can't stress it enough, you have to think in these terms, your timeshare isn't worth anything. And with this barter network, the barter exchange type stuff, you actually have a shot of actually getting something back of pretty good value if you can find something on the exchange that you can use. Like, I use the restaurants, but that's kind of about all, because I don't need welding, I don't need a new roof, we're in condos, and that kind of stuff. But if there was more, I would have used that whole $35,000 up and not had to spend $35,000. So there you go. If you have some timeshares or a timeshare and you're looking to get rid of it, I would suggest you just start at number 10 and actually I think you should start at number 8 and just start going down the line toward number 1. And I think you'd have a pretty good instance of getting rid of the timeshare that you have. And the last two are really the ones that work the best for me. Ask for nothing and just give it away free, even if you have to pay the transfer fee. Because I've done that in some instances because it was taking too long, the person was vacillating, so I just paid it and just, did it. Hope those things that we did help you get rid of your timeshares or timeshare. If you got something out of this, hit the like button and say you like this video, then we know, hey, what paths to go down. We're really pushing this for people who are retired, seniors, retired, either about to go into retirement, who are retired, ways to save money, ways to get you out of jams, ways to just make your retirement a lot better. So, hit the like button if you like it for sure. Absolutely, really appreciate it. If you subscribe to the channel, the more the channel grows, the more YouTube will start flagging it for other people who are seniors and other people who are retired, so they get to see what we're doing also. So subscribe, and lastly, hit that bell thing. The bell, when you see it, that means that it's a notification that we've put up something new. So when we put up a new video, if you've hit that bell, you'll get an email saying there's a new video. Why don't you take a look? Now, that's the basic premise, and it works pretty well. Really appreciate that you're watching, really appreciate that you're here. Until our next video, see ya.